wicked, wicked. Jungle is massive. Wicked, wicked. Jungle is massive. Wicked, wicked. Jungle is massive. Wicked, original.
Yo, check it all you lot out there. I be your host, RC, and I'm kicking it with none other than my main man, Buttress Evan. And we're here to talk about Ali G Indahouse.
I was so surprised by this movie.
You've never seen it before?
No, I had never seen it. I knew nothing about it other than, I was familiar with Ali G from the Ali G show, but I was so surprised by this movie from the very beginning. I was like, wait a second, is this just a movie? Is this just a movie with a story and a script and characters?
And out of the 90s sort of plot type of movie, but airing on the BBC.
I was just so surprised because I'd seen Borat and Bruno, but I'd never seen this, and I was assuming that it would be like Borat and Bruno, that it would be an extension of the Ali G show and be a bunch of, interviews with unsuspecting people. I was not expecting it to be a scripted movie.
Before we get started, though, I wanted to give a special shout out to Thomas Schlosser for being a $10 patron. And if you'd like to hear exclusive, even-numbered episodes, that's just a $5 pledge to the Review New Patreon. Or if you want to get a shout out, you can do a $10 pledge as well. Or if you want to do a one-time donation, one-time $30 donation to our Ko-fi, you can get any movie you want requested on this very podcast. Just go to Ko-fi.com/RapCritic and let us know what you want. So, now that we got that preamble out of the way, let's get into this. So, the first thing I found out was that this movie came out in 2002.
It was 2001 or 2002.
And it was 2002 because I think the first episode of the Ali G show was 2000. And then the second season was 2003 or something like that. So that means this movie came out before. In
the middle of the show.
Yeah, which was throwing me because okay, this feels like this should have earned more of a following before a movie. You mean to tell me there were 6 episodes and they were like, yes, give this guy a full movie? Really?
And the weird thing is that you could tell that they didn't fully trust him yet.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the movie is not at all what he does. It's not. It's just a movie. I mean, it's Ali G, but it could have been any. character.
It could have been any '90s comedian doing the the boss at this corporate job died, or it favors this one guy, and so he gets the job or something like that.
Yeah, it was, and it's funny because even though this movie is explicitly about politics, it is so unpolitical. It's so
exactly.
It is so apolitical. And that was really surprising because it is literally exclusively about politics. It's about the British government. It's about him becoming a member of parliament.
Yeah.
And yet it really is not at all political in the way that the show is. And
in fact, when he does become part of parliament and starts making decrees, the ultimate relevance of them is it's just supposed to be a joke. There's no actual commentary of what's happening.
And it reminds me of the Ali G in the show. Like I said on our last episode talking about the show, he is in some ways the most likable and the easiest to watch character on the show because his segments are the least politically biting, but that doesn't necessarily translate into likability in movie form, and I found him a lot harder to take as the center of an entire movie.
Definitely. It's the Jay and Silent Bob sort of issue.
Yeah, because he's when I'm watching this cute idiot talk to a congressman or whatever and get confused for 10 minutes, it's funny, but watching him try to carry a movie is a little different.
It's so I had immediate flashes to an Austin Powers sequel or Pootie Tang by Chris Rock. Do you remember that movie?
I remember Pootie Tang, yeah.
It's one of those very cheaply made, but by someone who I actually think is really funny, but it's just you can tell a full vision was not allowed to be made here, or I
haven't seen Pootie Tang in a long time, but my vague impression was that it was a lot better than this. But
that would be a conversation.
But again, I haven't seen Pootie Tang since I was 14, so that was my 14-year-old judgment. Yeah. So the plot, which again I was very shocked. So I guess we should say, and the only thing that keeps this structurally from being completely conventional is that a handful of times during the course of the movie, Ali G pops in this sort of split screen.
Oh yeah.
Facing the audience and sort of speaking in a meta commentary kind of way, as if Ali G is a real person, but this is a fictional movie and the real Ali G is talking to us. Like, he makes a comment about how his girlfriend in real life is a lot hotter than the actress playing his girlfriend in the movie.
I made it less hot, so that the chicks out there, could think that I'm accessible.
Yeah, and so like those kind of moments, it's sort of weirdly meta in sort of a Deadpool kind of way, but generally speaking, it's a very conventionally made movie, and it's, I mean, which isn't to say
it follows so many plot beats of wacky 90s comedies that it's almost a satire of them.
Right, and it's not to say that there's definitely stuff in there that's funny.
Yeah.
And there's definitely stuff in there that is specific to this character, and oh my god, Martin Freeman.
I was so not expecting. I kept looking, I was like, wait, you're in this movie? And Charles Dance, I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah. And
what are these respectable actors doing in this film?
So it starts off with this dream sequence.
Oh, right.
I mean, I clocked it as a dream sequence within 30 seconds because
it's so ridiculously goes over the top so quick.
Right. So it's set in Oakland, I guess.
Yeah, because it's all these like West Coast,
right.
Migos, and
it's Oakland, and Ali G gets into it with some gangbangers and gets in this ridiculous shootout. And of course, there's several moments in there where like we see that he has a dick that reaches down to his knees.
Yes, and it's just like awkwardly pointed out. And
then there was actually kind of a like visually shocking moment where the knee of his pants gets cut and his dick just pops out next to his knee. And because it's so ridiculous, for like a half second I didn't recognize it as a dick.
Right.
And I was like, what's wrong with his knee? Oh god.
And then afterwards, like a shootout, the guys try to shoot at him, but they completely miss, and they just happen to leave.
He's outlined, and then he has this like 3-foot dick hanging. Yeah, and then there are several jokes later in the movie indicating that in real life he has a very small dick, and so it's like, okay, that's his his fantasy sequence.
Yeah, exactly, because like it's one of those things, like it starts off being so ridiculous, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is obviously a dream sequence, but then of course you're aware as the movie goes on, like, no, but this is still like what me would want for me movie, like you still get that feeling as you're watching it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so when he wakes up, and this was this moment I had because I think there's a movie that Sacha Baron Cohen came out with a couple years ago, Grimsby.
Yeah. Okay.
And everybody was... there's a scene in Grimsby that is famously gross and involves an elephant. And everybody was talking about it.
Won't we?
I guess at some point we will watch Grimsby. And I refuse to call it The Brothers Grimsby because that's fucking stupid. And I'm tired of people acting like Americans can't handle a title. And calling it The Brothers Grimsby made it confusing because it has nothing to do with fairy tales or anything. Anyway, that's irrelevant. The point is that Sacha Baron Cohen has been doing disgusting things with animals from the get-go. So when he wakes up, he's in the middle of this dream sequence where two ladies of the street are going down on him.
Oh yeah, and he's like, "Let me help you with that," and he turns on the hydraulics.
And yeah, he's getting his dick sucked by two women in his car while it's bouncing from the hydraulics, and he's got this like very sweet convertible with and
this yellow, like just bird yellow convertible,
right? And so he wakes up and his dog is licking his crotch. Yeah. And then he decides to let the dog continue.
In a very, like, you could tell the Foley artist got paid that day sort of scene. Like, you're hearing like all the gross noises of the dog licking the nutsack. And
then
just like,
I will say I loved his granny, his nan, comes in. And this little old lady comes in, and she's just talking to him while he's in the middle of this. And the dog seems to have, like, then bitten him. And so he's, like, in pain and trying to get the dog off. And he's writhing around. And is like... His grandmother goes, "No, Ali Pally, it's not nice to play with your particular nannies in the room."
And of course, like, by just highlighting like her voice, it's kind of like going to a bigger point of this movie, just like the idea of these contradictions. Like Ali G wants to be this hardcore gangster pimp, and yet where he's living is like his sweet old nan is waking him up, for breakfast. And, he wants to be this hardcore dude in the dream sequence. You see him rolling down, California and mowing down a whole bunch of motherfuckers. Oh, but when you see him in real life, he's driving this little car, and it's like through this nice provincial neighborhood.
And what even is his car? He has the saddest little shoebox of a car.
Yeah.
And it's yellow. I liked that touch that it was yellow. It was the same color, but it's this like sad little boxy, like 1970s looking.
And just going from the beginning, like, so yeah, he the very, like, the what is it? The start of the brawl that happens at the beginning is because this guy's talking rude to one of the bitches, as he calls them. It's rude to talk to bitches like that.
Yeah.
And then he, as he's shooting back at the thugs, accidentally shoots a granny.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot about that.
That's what happens immediately.
That's some interesting subconscious symbolism. Yeah. Like, all right, what's going on? We got some tensions with Nan.
But just the fact that, like, he shoots this old lady, and then the very next thing that happens is, oh no, there's this little kid playing soccer who's gonna get too close to the shootout. I have to save him.
I did like the touch that. So he saves these two little kids. This is still in the dream sequence. He saves these two little kids and says, "Remember, life is the most precious gift that Jah has given us." And then he immediately turns around and just shoots like 20 guys. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's just like this movie is just such a setup and immediate payoff of the contradiction.
But so when we get to like his real life, he's driving through Staines, which is this very like bland, depressing little English village.
Yeah.
With these little tract houses that all look the same, and he goes to.
But meanwhile, playing fucking Jamaican, wicked, jungle is massive.
And he's like jumping around in the car, and at first it seems almost like he's supposed to be a teenager, and they do establish later he's in his early 20s, but he's sort of living like a teenager. And he goes and meets his friends at the town center, and they're all, they're all kind of similar,
the exact same way. They're all dressed in this gear that like it kept drawing my eye. Like, as a hip hop person, like, I kept looking at it, just like, they're all specifically wearing, like, Wu-Tang Clan, and it's 2002, and I'm pretty sure Wu-Tang Clan wasn't, like, the thing that was cool that moment.
It was, like, a specific...
Yeah, it was, like, this is, like, you either are such a fan of this thing, or, like, you don't realize this is out of style. You know what I mean? Because by 2002, it's 50 Cent, Ja Rule, Outkast.
Yeah.
Like, those are the type of, like, labels someone might be rocking if they were rocking, like, oh, I'm affiliated with hip-hop culture, so of course I'm gonna rock, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, the latest artists, but they're rocking them. And, in addition, he was wearing FUBU, which is specifically short for us, by us, because it's a black company.
Yeah.
So by them all wearing it, like, that's the sort of, like, the hint at saying that, we're all black. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
it's the indicator.
I'm glad you picked up on those details, because I didn't catch any of that. I did notice, so Martin Freeman, because, Ali G is doing this, like, intentionally, like, Jamaican accent.
Yes.
Martin Freeman is trying to sound more like he's from Oakland, it sounds like. Like, he's doing more of an American...
Yeah, but then every now and then he'll do the Jamaican accent thing, and it's so, like, I'm not expecting Martin Freeman to do this.
Like, they're all confused. All so
like,
confused.
the scene near the end where he's like, we got to call out all the, the groups all around the Staines Massives, to call them out and to come down to help us out. And then, like, Martin Freeman launches into his thing, and it's just, like, took me aback with how, like, insane it was.
So Martin Freeman's kind of playing his best friend Ricky, I think.
Yeah.
Then there's two others that are in they're the West Staines.
Yeah, they're the West Staines Massive, because the other ones is the East Staines Massive. They wear blue.
And so they've got this little guy, and then the big guy who doesn't talk.
Yeah.
And then the East Staines Massive rolls up, and they're kind of like... kind of their mirror image.
Yeah, basically the exact same people. But and the funny thing is like, okay, so the dude rolls up and you see like this Indian looking dude, and then he starts talking like a Jamaican guy too, and you're just like, what?
So, yeah, because you both have like, and it's interesting. So Ali, Sacha Baron Cohen is of he's of Israeli descent, and he's sort of ethnically ambiguous looking and is described like sort of indirectly in the movie is described as ethnic, but it's also but Ali G's ethnicity is never really spelled out because,
and I think that's also partially because they're older, stuffier guys, so they don't know what he looks like. This looks like hip hop. Is he a black guy? I don't know. Is Eminem black?
I mean, and he's
that type of guy.
Yeah, I mean, but I will say, like, so he's, I think it's fairly clear that Ali G is not Jewish because he says something at some point about Jews that indicates he doesn't, like, he says something about it's like Mecca to the Jews, so either he's not Jewish or he's just stupid.
Yeah, which, I mean, he is like, that stupid.
His grandmother has some Yiddishkeit, but I don't know.
But that might purely be a sort of like, as he's writing it, he puts that in, you know what I mean? Yeah, but that's not actually,
But so I think it was funny that the leader of each one is like not black,
yes,
but sort of like ethnically ambiguous, that an old stuffy white guy might look at them and go, "What are you?"
Yeah, like an older who doesn't understand, he would just be like, "Oh, he looks all wearing the danger clothing, you know." He's wearing the hip hop people clothing,
right? And so they have just this absolute like elementary schoolyard exchange where they're standing going, "East Side's the best, West Side's the
and it's
best."
Like, this is what these guys think, like, turf wars are.
Yeah, you know? and then at one point the East Side guy pulls a Bugs Bunny on him and says, "West Side's the best," and then Ali G goes, "East Side's the
it's such a like dumb moment, like, oh damn, he got me.
And so then we find out one of the things that Ali G does that they don't come back to this really. It's kind of the one scene, but he teaches. For some reason, someone's letting him teach this group of children.
Oh, well, that's what's supposed to be the plot, right?
Right. It's this like
this community center or something.
So he loves the community center. It's established that he loves the community center.
The Break Into Electric Boogaloo plot,
Yeah, but he's specifically teaching this quasi scouting thing called the like Keep It Real class.
Yes.
And it's all these little kids, and he's like trying to teach them how to be gangbangers, and it is so cringy.
And if you look in the background, there's like lots of other like little messages like, remember, always respect the crew, or something. Always like there's just, if you look like as they're doing the scenes where they're saying like, here's the plot thing. If you look like right in the background, it's just some stupid like trying to sound gangster shit.
It is so cringy.
Oh man.
Yeah. So essentially, so we've got that, in hero's journey terms. This is Allie's ordinary world, is living in Staines and pretending to be a gangsta and teaching little kids how to be pretend gangsters.
Teaching them how to survive on the west side of Staines.
At the community center. Yeah. And so that's basically the establishment of Ali G's life, and then we find out, and this is where it gets kind of particular about British politics. I do say it's a pretty apolitical movie in the sense of sort of political sides or values, but sort of this is where British politics is pretty different from American politics, and I am not by any means an expert. I mean, the most I know about British politics is that I read A Very English Scandal, but essentially, prime ministers are not exactly like presidents. I think sometimes we Americans have a tendency to think like, oh, the prime minister is basically exactly like the president. It's a little different. And so we've established that it's the Liberal Party, right? It's the Liberal Party, which in British politics, you have the Conservative Party on the right, the Labour Party on the left, and then the Liberal Party is kind of a smaller party that is sort of centrist and floats in between the two, and will often either align itself with the Conservatives or Labour, depending on what is what's convenient at the time. Okay. But there is a Liberal prime minister. I might be getting some of this wrong. I didn't catch all the exact details, but the prime minister is the leader of the Liberal Party, and his what, I can't remember the title, his deputy prime minister, who's essentially the vice, the deputy prime minister is working on the election, and we find out fairly quickly he has this nefarious plot to tank the election intentionally,
right? Yeah,
so
yeah.
that there will be a vote of no confidence. The prime minister will be driven out, and then he will become the prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like that's something that would particularly happen in this system. And he's got this this very beautiful assistant played by, I can't remember the actress's name. She was this very beautiful woman with a British accent that is so posh it sounds fake. And they're sitting there and they're going, okay, we need to find somebody to run for the member of parliament representing Staines. And they're like, oh, we need somebody who's young and hip and in touch and
maybe a little ethnic looking, but...
right. And so Ali G at this point, he's gone to the nursing home where his girlfriend works.
Well, the first thing he does in that scene is hit on a chick that we think is his girlfriend.
Right, we see him rubbing on this girl's hips and oh, I missed you so much and all this. And then his girlfriend kind of clears her throat behind him and he turns, oh, me Julie. And that's just kind of dropped that she puts up with a lot.
Yeah, I mean, even the ending, last scene is a joke of him about to, propose to her. But I actually am asking you if I can bang that chick over there.
Yeah, he's really kind of a terrible boyfriend and she puts up with a lot.
Well, it's again that thing that you see in all these wacky comedies of the girlfriend who's putting up with way too much. You know what I mean? We're just really now, when someone put up with this guy saying, hey, can I cheat on you in front of you?
Yeah, and I mean,
it just tips and it's what you said earlier about the character, I don't like this person.
Right,
you know?
he's so much more likable on the show when we don't have to actually see him being terrible to his girlfriend.
Yeah, and then seeing her go oh, you were terrible to me, but it was for a set piece, and I had to just ignore it and we move on to the next thing,
she's quite sweet. I think that the reason that kind of thing works on the show is that, he says stuff where it's oh, God, you're a horrible boyfriend. But then the way he talks about the girl, it sounds like she's kind of horrible, too. And they're just
he's talking about the girlfriend. And she's,
But the girlfriend character, whose name seems to, he calls her Julie.
But that's not her name, yeah.
Well, but
I keep thinking that because...
Julie is it's Jamaican slang, right, for a girlfriend?
Oh, yeah.
But I thought also, at least on the captions, it looked like her name was actually Julie also.
Yeah, no, I think it's a thing where, the person who would be writing the caption doesn't know what's happening either, so he's just is her name Julie?
So, we'll call her Julie, because if she has a different name, I don't know about it. Yeah. But she, she's very sweet, and she just seems to kind of be a little bit of a punching bag, so it's a little... depressing.
It's one of those things where it's she has to be that so that these jokes, setups, and payoffs can work. Right. It's because if someone was actually telling these making these things to make us, the audience, laugh, in real life, no one would put up with that. You'd be you're a dickhead, get the fuck away. You know what I mean? I don't know. There was the scene where he's I'm thinking of you all the time. Even when I close my eyes, I'm thinking of you. In fact, I'm about to do it right. And then he does it, and it's one of those things where it's just if they did it for a couple of seconds, it would have been fine. But it keeps
He's
going.
He's standing there with his eyes closed for several minutes, fantasizing about a dominatrix.
Yeah, and it's just first of all, you've belabored the joke so that it's not funny, and now you've gotten me to the point where I'm just thinking, who would put up with this? That's what I mean by it's just it's not funny enough to make me not think about how awkward the character is, Yeah.
So the plot gets rolling because the guy who runs the community center comes and tells Ali G, while he's in the middle of misguiding children, the community center is going to be closed. And so Ali G decides that he's going to chain himself up into a hunger strike.
Yes, this scene.
So he chains himself to a fence. He bungles the start of his hunger strike because a guy's eating McRibs near him or something.
He just immediately takes a bite of the guy's food.
Yeah, well, the guy's holding it out to him, feeding a bird.
Yeah.
And so he's okay, I'll start over. He's chained to the fence, and the guy from the East Stands Massive comes up and pulls his pants down.
And I think it caught me off guard, but it's just how funny it was because he was just you know what? You're right. I'm not going to bother you. It's for an important cause. And then they're walking away, and then it's just one more thing.
Yeah.
And it so looks like he's about to like, oh, okay, he's being the mature guy. Like they play it just good enough where when he turns around, it catches you off guard, and then the floop, the pants down. Now that was funny to me, but where it gets slightly tipped over to me is where you have, the old blind gate polisher is coming down.
Yeah, it was
like,
pushing. There were a few points where it was like, oh, this was funny, and then you just took it that few steps further.
Exactly.
So he's standing there naked, or like pantsless, and of course they've got like the bus full of old ladies and the Girl Scout troop and
nuns or something,
and everybody's screaming, and then the girl that he was groping at the old folks' home sees him and starts giggling at the size of his dick, and then he sees that girl and he's like trying to get hard in order to impress her.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so he's hard, and then this old blind man who's polishing the poles, because of course that's a thing. You have old blind guys going around polishing poles outside. That's a thing.
These are the jobs that their government is affording these poor old people.
So he comes up to him and he's like, "Oh, this pole is very dirty," and of course starts.
Yeah, it was just all like.
So
contrived.
while it's very contrived. So while this is happening, the evil deputy prime minister is looking out the window and sees him, and is like, okay, bring him up to me.
Oh yeah, because he's protesting for a good cause.
Well, and I
right, because they like, well, look at that guy out there. He's doing something for this local community place,
I think
right?
that even at that point, the deputy prime minister is like, the gears are turning in his head where he's going, oh yeah, let me here's a useful idiot who's gonna blow things up for me.
Mm-hmm.
So they bring Allie up. He makes an absolute idiot of himself, but they talk him into running in the by-election.
Yeah, and something happens which oddly is reflective of something that happened in British politics recently. Am I wrong? Where it's like Ali G jokes about one of the, guys who's like flummoxed by this guy being here, right? He's like, this is preposterous. How can this, street ruffian be here and, amongst our politics, of adults and da-da-da. And he goes like, Ali G starts, just making jokes, just taking the piss. It's like, oh yeah, I bet you, banged a horse, didn't you? And then like the guy goes like, well, I do have to legally say that it was an accident, and everyone just goes like, "What?"
Yeah, it's this absolute ridiculous Deus Ex Machina where he's having but before that, there's a montage of him going around to campaign and just absolutely fucking everything up as much as possible.
Yeah, there's one scene where it's like a building opening ceremony,
and they say you're gonna lay the first brick, and he takes a shit because of course he does.
What a thought of a scene where it's just like.
Yeah.
He just poops.
He just poops because they say lay a brick. So he's having a debate with this guy who seems to have his shit together, and he's completely but then he just like off the top of his head as an insult says you sucked off a horse.
Yeah.
And then the guy like says that yes,
has to confess to
like
it.
that he actually did he's like, I explained this already, it was an accident, my mouth landed on its phallus. And
wasn't there something like recently about like Prince Harry like fuck the mouth of a pig or some weird shit?
Are you thinking of Black Mirror?
No. In fact, the thing was, it's like, no, like, because the point was people were pointing out that episode retroactively and going like, yo, were they like pointing to something that was happening beforehand?
David Cameron. So the Prime Minister David Cameron. So Piggate, which just looks like a real word, it looks like pigot. It looks like pigot, which a
little bit of pigotry was happening.
Yeah, so pigot refers to an uncorroborated anecdote that during his university years, former British Prime Minister David Cameron put his private parts into a dead pig's mouth as part of an initiation ceremony for the Piers Gaveston Society.
Oh wow.
Reported in an unauthorized biography, Call Me Dave.
For some reason, dead made it worse. I don't know.
It's like, that's worse. You get how that's worse, right? I don't know. I mean, I guess then the pig's not suffering. It's
but...
It's more like fucking a hamburger at
that point. You know what? I'm not even going to try to play this. I'm not going to play this race to the bottom comparison here. But the point being...
So anyway, Ali G's opponent, it turns out, has actually sucked off a horse. and for some reason decides to tell everybody about
that one was like, you could just lie. Like, what?
Right.
Has no politician done that in Britain before?
Yeah, so it's a pretty far-fetched scene, but that happens, and Ali G gets elected by just a few votes. Like, both him and the opponent, and like they each get about 5,000 votes, and he wins by a hair. And so he becomes the PM, and he, of course, is taken to London and does not know at all how to behave in Parliament. Although I will say, Parliament's not exactly the most not exactly the most staid and polite society.
In and of itself, right?
There's a lot of shouting and stuff anyway, but Ali G especially does not know how to behave.
But causes a little trouble at first.
Yeah, but it turns out that he's like, the prime minister loves him, and he's sort of, well, what happens at first is he causes a big scene. He stands up and he's like, you know, not behaving at all, has to get dragged out. And the prime minister's like, okay, I'm going to have him resign tomorrow. But the next day he comes into the office and the prime minister says, look at the paper. And the papers are full of this amazing new PM who's a breath of fresh air, and he's keeping it real, and he's the voice of the young people. And so all of a sudden he's the prime minister's favorite, and he becomes part of the cabinet, and he's going around. And the next big chunk of the movie is basically that sort of fantasy of what if this idiot schmo became, you know, was in a position of power and just fixed everything and made everything fun.
Right.
Know, weed's legal, and kids are gonna learn about, you know, gangster shit in school.
Yeah, but the ridiculous things he's suggesting end up working, like, somehow, because, you know,
he solves immigration by only letting hot ladies in.
That was he was like, I think that was the closest thing it got to, like, being a little spicy with what they were trying to say, but still that idea of, like, the middle being, well, we do have to deal with these immigrants, but we'll make a light joke about it.
They have a scene at customs where all these, like, model looking women are walking through, and the guys waving them through, you, and then this kind of, like, mousy little woman in a trench coat comes through, and he's like, no, back to Slovenia.
Yeah, although I will say, I think it's a better way of handling that, you know, clearly more conservative, but trying to sound like the middle ground thing than, what was that movie with Robin Williams, Man of the Year? Did you ever see it?
No, I never watched that.
That was one of those movies that were just like, I remember seeing it and being like, I like Robin Williams, so I should see this, but it's 2005 Robin Williams, so I know I shouldn't, you know what I mean? And it was like, what if Jon Stewart became, like, president? What if the guy, you know, commenting on all the, you know, things going on became president? And then it was just like, the whole point was just like, well, actually, it was a false election, so it didn't even matter anyway. So, like, the idea of the will of the people electing this person didn't even matter to the narrative. But on top of that, there was a little joke about, like, you know, Robin Williams being the guy who's, you know, he doesn't care about left or right. He's willing to just say, you know, what the real deal is. And he makes a joke about how, like, oh, but we still need to take care of the immigrants who are coming over here with, you know, dinette sets and tables. And it's just like,
I just think, like, also that particular fantasy of what if this ordinary idiot Joe Schmo became president and kept it real is much less funny right now, because, I mean, that's essentially, like, I'm gonna get political for a second, sure.
Oh, so,
Trump's election.
Go off, King.
I mean, but Trump's election was that fantasy of what if this, you know, plain talking real guy who's not in politics, and he's this, you know, he's gonna say what he thinks, and he's just gonna cut to the chase and fix everything, and kind of just do that common sense solutions. That's how Trump got elected, and people who elected him and who liked Trump were saying, because he doesn't sound like a politician, because he's just keeping it real and saying it like it is, and he's gonna get in there and just drain the swamp and fix things.
People saying
and the problem is that people like politics actually is complicated and difficult, and people who go, oh, I don't need to think about all these details, let me just do this, like, that doesn't actually work in real life.
And the thing is, like, so many people want to be apolitical, and you can kind of see it in some of the, you know, maybe, like, some YouTube videos that you see online where it's just like, I'm just reviewing a movie. I'm not political at all, but these women need to stop pushing their feminist agenda in my movies. You know, it's like this sort of you think you're apolitical, but you're not realizing.
Yeah, and
you either aren't realizing because you're an idiot, or and you think you're smart by not being political, or you're a grifter who's, just trying to spread your message.
Thing is, specifically in the sense of politics, I mean, everything's political in a way, but specifically when you're talking about government and international relations, it's like, no, that shit is actually complicated.
Yes,
and getting in there and going, well, why don't we just, and so there's a scene that sort of sets things up where he's taken, for some reason, he is taken to the where all the contraband things have been.
Oh yeah,
and
it's like you would never.
And of course, it is just a massive collection of really good weed, fun weapons, and
porn,
and just over the top porn. And so he sneaks in. I will say it was kind of funny. He sneaks in his friends as experts, and they show up dressed like their grandmothers. I don't know why they decided that dressing like old ladies was the way to look like experts, but they'd show up like clearly wearing their grandmother's clothing and going, "Hello, we're experts." And then you see them all in there watching porn and smoking together. And I had this moment. I was saying, so I was watching this with my wife, and I was like, I just don't think I'd ever be comfortable watching porn, much less actually jerking off with
my
platonic
friend?
Right?
Yeah,
that is such. I mean, I love you, man, but I would not.
Okay,
that is not where our relationship is.
That threw me off. Okay, and that specifically threw me off. And I was thinking about I think there was another podcast where they talked about. I was listening to a podcast about Family Guy, and they were talking about the first episode is they're going to a stag party where guys are drinking beer and watching porn, because the main plot point of that episode is that Chris tapes over the porn with some library project he had to do or something like that. And it's just like, what? Isn't it 1999? Who's getting together with their friends and watching porn?
I know. It's
that's like a 50s thing.
Specifically because they all have their pants off. And it's like, I could kind of see watching porn with a friend just for if it was really shocking, weird German porn being oh, let's check this out and see how weird it is. But no, they were clearly jerking it.
Yeah.
But so they set this up that he's got access to all these amazing drugs and everything.
And that's the real politics showdown. The conservatives are really keeping us from having the cool stuff. Or wait, no, it wouldn't be conservative. The Tories? What is the word over there for this?
Yeah. So then later, he goes to this big international. Does this happen before or after the state dinner? This happens after the state dinner, right?
It
because
really kind of
I think it does because we've already met the two leaders that were okay. So there's a big state dinner where Allie's being brought around and meeting the leaders of different countries, and of course he's being horribly offensive. Mm-hmm. And I think there was this recurring joke about Thai women being able to shoot ping pong balls out of their vaginas. Which I was to me that's not funny, just because it's
it's the sort of specifically playing on the sex tourism aspect of how people treat Thailand.
And I'm not look, I can find things both offensive and funny at the same time, but it's this is offensive and just tiresome. It's okay. So of course
very base jokes in this movie.
he hands a ping pong ball to the Thai leader because obviously she would be able to do that with it, is his idea. And then when he meets the Mongolian leader and talks to and says, "I will get you some crayons," and it because did you not get that joke?
No.
Okay, so the term mongoloid, this is really offensive.
Oh.
They used to refer to people with Down syndrome as mongoloid because supposedly people with Down syndrome look Asian.
Okay, so that was I half got what was happening there. I was
it's a horrifically offensive little bit of linguistic history there, but mentally challenged people used to be referred to as mongoloid.
In the same way there are other words that
right. So it's both racist and ableist. But so
double whammy.
So he meets the Mongolian leader and talks to him as if he is mentally challenged.
Yeah.
And then I will say it was really funny that then he meets Borat.
Yes.
And of course it was obviously a stretch because Borat's not a
he's not a freaking
the character's a
diplomatic
journalist,
leader.
not a diplomat. But it was still funny that like so Borat kisses him and Ali like gets mad and then Borat like calls him a faggot for so this next bit I thought was, you know, very contrived, like very. So, okay, there was part of it that was clever, but the execution bothered me. Okay, so basically, Ali G and his girlfriend go up to the Prime Minister's bedroom, and I will say there was
something straight out of Police. The Leslie Nielsen movie.
So there's some clever foreshadowing here. I will say it's some clever foreshadowing. So Ali G says, you know, he wants to fuck the girlfriend, and she says, we can't, we're in the Prime Minister's bedroom. He says, so I'll be the Prime Minister, and he puts on the Prime Minister's hat and coat and fucks her, and they're having very loud sex, and they're banging the ceiling, and the chandelier downstairs is shaking, and at first I'm thinking, oh god, they're just gonna like break the ceiling or something, but at the same time, so right before this happens, the Prime Minister goes upstairs with a world leader to have a private conversation, and then they hear the loud sex, and they really only hear Ali G shouting, so they hear a man's voice shouting and loud sex. And then, as soon as they finish, the Prime Minister and the other world leader come down, and this is the part that I was just like, okay, so we get the joke that it looks like they were having
like
sex.
that is a fine,
like, that's funny. But then they have this, like, really tortured dialogue of like,
out the joke.
He had me in a hole, but we went in deeper, and it was just like
no one would talk like that.
It's like no, it's like it doesn't work as a double entendre because it's trying so hard to be a double entendre.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense as a single entendre.
Yes, and then the way everyone's just overreacting, like, whoa, gay sex, whoa.
And then
And well, it tips way over when the Prime Minister talks to the other African leader and goes like, and now would you like to join me? And he goes, hell no. And it's like that sort of like, oh, how dare you?
And then, so what was a little odd is, okay, so the leader that this happens with is the president of Chad.
Yes.
Is he Chad? And then
Chad and there's another country.
Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
And so then I think it's supposed to be like the next day or very soon after, there's a peace conference. And the issue at hand is that Burkina Faso has invaded Chad, I think.
Yeah.
And the leaders of Burkina Faso and Chad are sitting right next to each other.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was like, would you be sitting right, like, elbow to elbow with the guy who invaded your country?
I mean,
like,
you know, they gotta have the shot, you know, just have the... and then, there was, I guess, a little bit of politics where they're like, you know, this country has done this to my country, and then, you know, Russia's like, you know, we are affiliated with this country, and so, you know, if you do this, we will consider it attack. And America's like, if you do anything to us, then we will consider it an attack, and we will go straight to war.
So they have, so America and Russia are getting involved, and everybody's screaming, shouting at each other, and Ali sneaks off, and he takes a bunch of that really high-grade weed and puts it into the food.
Into the tea.
And then has them, and then tells the ladies who are sort of working the, you know, the food, like, okay, they need to eat, bring their food out. And, of course, moments later, everybody's stoned out of their gourds. And so, of course, they all act like a bunch of friendly college kids getting stoned and sitting around. And Chad and Burkina Faso.
That's basically always the punchline to weed humor jokes.
Yeah, it's like, if everybody would just get stoned, man. But so, and I will say, like, the bit between Chad and Burkina Faso with that was kind of funny because they start out as like he's just like, man, I'm sorry, you're cool.
Yeah.
You got cool clothes. And then they kiss. And the funny thing about the kiss is, like, I feel like this was well done because the sort of, like, schlocky thing would be to just have them furiously making out all of a sudden. But instead, they just, like, very tentatively give each other this little smooch. And then they pull apart and just look sort of stunned. And I'm like, that's exactly... I feel like if you got baked and kissed somebody you were not expecting to kiss, that is exactly...
to it.
Yeah. So I thought that was funny. And then also I did appreciate that then the next day... the press is around going, hey, we found evidence that you drugged the leaders of the free world, and they drive him out of Parliament. And I'm like, okay, good.
Just immediately gets his comeuppance,
There's some actual consequence. So that, I appreciate that. So, So basically, that all happens. Ali G is driven out of Parliament, and he goes back to Staines, and he's, you know, kind of depressed because his girlfriend has broken up with him for being a dick to her, and
you're helping me more with this plot than I'm trying. Than
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
remembering.
and
Because I was like, oh yeah, that is what happens. Oh yeah,
right. And so here's where the foreshadowing was pretty clever. So he had dressed up as the prime minister to fuck his girlfriend in the prime minister's bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out on the news. The prime minister is seen here fucking an unknown prostitute.
Right.
And so what's her face? Kate, the assistant, shows up, and she is there to threaten Ali G because, of course, Ali G knows that's not the prime minister, that's me, and he's getting really mad, like, hey, they're calling my girlfriend a hooker, and he's getting really angry about it, and she shows up and says, if you keep your mouth shut, and it turns out that she and the deputy prime minister did this on purpose, released the video, hid the rest of the video where you can see that it's actually Ali, and so that the prime minister is resigned in disgrace and the deputy prime minister is taken over. And she shows up and says, if you keep your mouth shut, we will give you lots of money and I'll fuck you. And he's about to fuck her, and he takes off her skirt and her panties say keep it real. And so he has this vision, and this was to me the weirdest part of the whole movie. He has this vision where he's flashing back to Julie, and it's him and her in like this 70s disco thing. And the weird thing is, like, it's like I recognized Sacha Baron Cohen, but I didn't realize that was supposed to be Ali G at first, because he is hatless with long curly hair and like a Lestat mesh shirt, clean shaven, not wearing any sunglasses or anything, and he looks so completely different. Like he looks like if Sacha Baron Cohen were dressed up as Lestat, and it's like what, and I still don't understand it.
What, like how he just cleans up?
No, it was just this like 70s. It was like he and Julie, although like she's looking a little different because she's looking all 70s, but he literally looks like a completely different person. And it's like this little sequence of them in a disco together.
I'm trying to remember how that scene played out.
It was just this little flash of them together at a disco, and I saw it later described as when they first met, and I don't understand it, but regardless,
yeah, okay.
So he has this flash on Julie, and he's like, no, I can't do it, and he runs out, and he basically decides, like, he gets together with his friends, and he's like, we got to stop this. And so they call all of the crews from all across the I guess the country together. Yeah. And it's all these little fake gangs, like he and his friends have.
Yeah,
and
at one point you just see and shout out to, the Bellevue Massive or whatever. Right. It's just one kid doing his homework, and you're like,
yes! Oh god, that was so funny. And they go outside the, I guess it's the Prime Minister's mansion, whatever you call it.
I completely have lost the plot of what happens.
You
are guiding me.
Right. So what they're trying to do now is recover the missing part of the footage from the Prime Minister's mansion, or the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion, so that they can vindicate the Prime Minister and prove that it wasn't really him. And so they have this whole plot, and of course, all of these guys show up, and he tells them, "You got to show up in camo, so you're stealthy." And they're all in this like
bright orange camo looking shit,
neon camo, and they all get outside the house, and they have a big silly caper. What I will say, I really appreciated. They have these moments where they're trying to get through like the laser, security stuff. Yeah. And I would have expected them to just sort of like bumble through like idiots and set alarms off, but they actually have these neat little sequences where they're like doing like pop and lock dancing.
Oh, right, yeah, that's how they get through. Yeah,
and it was actually really cute. Mm-hmm. So they get through, they get to the safe, and then they have to Martin Freeman's character Ricky has this idea to blow up the safe by forming a human chain between the safe and the car batteries, and it works at the last minute only because like the chain's broken and they're gonna get
There's a
electrocuted.
little bit of suspense.
But the guy from the East Stays Massive comes in and saves them. So it's
At the last second.
Right. So
somehow he knows what's going on.
So it's this nice reconciliation moment. They get the safe open. They get the tape as well. And there was a kind of funny bit where he's like, I just see a bunch of photographs, and it's like Margaret Thatcher getting fucked, and like it's just this ridiculous. It's like, oh, it's just some photographs. But while they're in there, he finds the plans to build an airport terminal over Staines, to completely demolish the town and build an airport terminal. So
the social commentary.
Right. So then he's like, oh, we got to stop this. And he I think he calls Julie at one point and says, you need to stop this. And the deputy prime minister comes out, who, by the way, is like this. He looks a bit like Keith Carradine. He's not Keith Carradine, but he looks
you mean Charles Dance?
Charles Dance, that isn't.
Yeah,
he looks like a cross between
bad guy.
Yeah, he looks like a cross between Bill Nighy and Keith Carradine.
You're right.
He's like, he's hard looking. Like, he looks like an old man that would fuck you up. Mm-hmm. And so of course Allie's like standing there, like, you know, like trying to be tough, and he just punches him in the face. Yeah. And Allie starts crying and like tries to kind of slap him ineffectively, and the old guy like just punches him out. And tries to kill Ricky and the big guy, who it turns out can talk. He just has a very high squeaky voice and doesn't like to talk. And he tries to suffocate them by locking them in the room and cutting off the air supply. And Allie G goes and rescues them, and it turns out they were fucking because they decided to try it since they were dying.
Oh, yeah. It was all right.
Yeah. So, long story short, they managed to escape. The bulldozer crew is coming to try and bulldoze Staines, and they arrest Julie, and they carry off all the old ladies, forming a human chain. And then at the very last minute, Kate saves the day, the assistant, because she was like, I can't do this anymore. And she starts going into this whole speech about, when I got into politics, I wanted to make the world a better. And Allie's like, yawn, boring. And so they cut to the chase, and the prime minister is vindicated. And the deputy prime minister gets hauled off, and I thought it was like a nice little funny commentary that they go like, okay, Staines is saved, we're not going to build the airport. Oh, don't worry, we're going to go build it over this other town. Who cares about that? That's not the one the main character lives in. And Allie lives happily ever after in Staines with his girlfriend, and doesn't try to, you know, and it's a little bit of that Wizard of Oz, like, oh, he shouldn't have looked beyond his own backyard, and you know, so
you know, he gets everything he wants at the end. He gets to be a ambassador to Jamaica.
Oh, right. So I almost forgot. Yeah. So there's this like it seems like that's the end, and then there's this little he goes, well, there could be one thing, and he goes, and then you see he's the ambassador to Jamaica. We're sitting there going, oh God, this is a little problematic. You're sending a British guy in a pith helmet to go in.
Yeah.
So he's in this mansion in Jamaica, and all these women in bikinis are standing around giving him giant bushels of weed, and it's a big giant pool party, and his girlfriend's dancing around in like a British flag crop top, and
looking like a member of the friggin' Spice Girls.
She does. She looks like Baby Spice.
Yeah.
And then this, like, I almost thought this was another dream sequence because it's so ridiculous. The deputy prime minister comes out in like weird, like, burlesque drag.
Yeah, it just so threw me off.
And dances for him.
Because they're just like, what?
And it was like, I expected this to be revealed as a dream sequence, and it never was. Although I feel like you could fairly interpret it as such, because it's just so ridiculous.
I mean, you could interpret this whole movie as a dream sequence, because I mean, with in the narrative of the film, the fact that he interrupts it to tell you things is keying you into it. Like, I'm telling you that this is this is not even my reality.
Right,
you know,
it's clearly an unreliable narrative.
Yeah, but just the fact of just like. Oh.
I was a little annoyed by that, and I will say, so there was a moment, there was a bit during the sequence where Ali G is like doing well in Parliament, where he makes the deputy prime minister go out and read some memos, and he has to read it word for word, and what he reads is stuff like, I'm a chode or whatever. And then he goes, I used to be a girl and wear knickers, ask me mom.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that was kind of funny. And I'll say, like, okay, like, as I mentioned on one of the previous episodes, like, I'm FTM. I feel like I can say this. Like, I actually thought that this was kind of funny in that his insult was, you're, like, clearly you're a man, but, like, oh, you used to be a girl and you used to have to wear panties. Like I said, like, I'm FTM. I feel like I can say, like, I found that kind of funny. But because I feel like the sort of typical lazy joke of an apparently male person is like, oh, you secretly like wearing women's panties, or you secretly are feminine. And, like, that to me is, like, kind of tired, and the, like, joking that this person is, like, you know, born male and feminine is the joke, which is, like, very tired. And I thought actually just saying I used to be a girl as the, like, making him say that as the insult was kind of funny, and that at least it was something different. And then at the end, having him come out in, like,
like a payoff to that.
Having it, well, it wasn't a payoff. It was like the other thing is, like, having him come out in a mini skirt and a corset and feminizing him, as the sort of humiliation joke. I thought that was, like, really tired, and that's, you know.
Yeah,
I thought that was very tired, and also just doesn't make sense, because it's like, why
would he agree to doing this?
Right, it's like, it was just weird, and that's where I thought, like, this has to be a dream sequence. And it was, I mean, I guess, like, it ended on, without revealing that it was a dream sequence, just because it was like, let's end on the big party, which you see a lot of movies, I feel like, from that era ending on, like, a big crazy dance sequence.
Yeah, like,
you know, the whole joke of Ali G is he's trying to be a Jamaican gangbanger. He's a white kid from Staines. Isn't he ridiculous? This is so stupid. And the joke is not on Jamaicans. The joke is not on Afro-Caribbean people. The joke is on this dumbass white kid who's faking it.
Yeah, no.
And then having that sort of objectification of Jamaica at the end, where this country exists as a playground for this guy to go and smoke a bunch of weed and objectify a bunch of Jamaican women, kind of left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You know, it's like rewarding him for the worst parts of his personality.
Yeah.
You know, like, he's supposed to be the butt of the joke, and then at the end it felt like it was validating Ali G's view of Jamaica as this, like, fantasy land instead of a real country with real people.
This is how I felt. Yeah, this is how I felt about, like, this felt like this is the movie that he made for the actual 10-year-old fans that watch his show and don't really know what it's about. You know what I'm saying? Like if this feels like the movie that Adam Sandler would have made with, you know, this sort of personality, not the type of, like, because I do get that feeling, like, when I see Ali G as someone who I know is being played by Sacha Baron Cohen, like, and when I would see him in, like, little things, like, before I really knew who he was, like, there would still be like that feeling of, like, but this guy's more clever than an Adam Sandler joking around. Like, he'll actually catch you off guard with what he's saying, and he'll actually make, like, a deeper point, and he'll gross you the fuck out, but, like, he knows how to balance all three of those types of comedy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, coming back to what I said at the very beginning, I was just surprised, and I think what this was is, as you pointed out, he'd only done one season of the Ali G show when this movie was made.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, this is a funny character, you're funny, but they didn't trust him to do his thing yet.
Yeah.
And so the movie had to be this very, you know, the content...
A boilerplate plot.
Right. The content's not particularly conventional, but the form of it's very, very conventional, because they were like, look, we can't do this big experimental movie with an untested person. And I think it's kind of a shame, because the movie's like, okay, it's kind of funny, but it was
It's not the worst he could have done, yeah.
But it was nowhere near as good as Borat or even Bruno, because it missed the point of the character. The whole point of Ali G is not just, here's this funny character who, you know, because, and as I said, like, the movie, like, it doesn't really make any kind of point.
Yeah.
The point of it is, it's got the same moral as The Wizard of Oz, is like, be happy in your little town with your little girlfriend and don't have any bigger aspirations. And, you know, so there was no point to it. There was no bite to it.
Yeah.
And,
you know what it felt to me like? It felt like, okay, so in the 80s, there was this character named Max Headroom. Do you know about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like as it started off, like the original Max Headroom was like this plot that was like the cyberpunk thing, and that was supposed to be like commentary on, you know, politics or whatever. But then like it got really popular, like the image of this guy got popular, and so he got like an actual TV show where he's just like hosting music videos and stuff like that. And it's like so it's like the image and maybe like the style of that person, but it's not really the deeper commentary of what the original thing is. It's just the aesthetic that's cool. And that's what this movie feels like. Like people like the aesthetic of the dumb, like, you know, white boy pretending to be Jamaican, even if you don't know what is happening deeper there, like on a like simple level, 10-year-olds like watching that guy pretend to be like that.
But to me,
you know?
only, like, the thing that makes Ali G funny in the show is this idiot talking to, you know, some very smart people, some very awful people, and really, like, shining a light on really specific things by playing dumb.
Yeah.
And when you're just watching him be dumb in the context of a dumb comedy,
Precisely.
it's like, you know, it just doesn't,
too much dumb piled on, and
well, it just doesn't serve the purpose.
And
it's like,
and it doesn't seem to understand what the point of the character is, because it seems to only think that, isn't it funny when he makes a gay joke, instead of like, no, but he was doing that to say something about that the person he's interviewing.
right? And it's like, okay, like, I think, you know, most people don't find a pie in the face funny anymore because it's so cliche, but like originally, like, pretend it's the 1940s and a pie to the face is funny, right?
Yeah.
A pie to the face is funny. It's like if somebody saw a pie to the face joke and we're like, oh, that's funny. Here, stare at this picture of a pie. Isn't this hilarious? It's like, no, but if you don't have the target, it's not funny. You're just staring at a pie. And what I will say, I'm very glad that this movie did not cause the end of Sacha Baron Cohen's career, because I could see an alternate universe where the movie comes out, it's not great, it doesn't do that well, and, you know, and the higher ups go, oh, well, this guy failed the test, so don't give him anything else.
And I remember like us seeing, like, my family loved Borat, and afterwards like going like, oh hey, well, we like Sacha Baron Cohen, we gotta see this movie, and just being like,
yeah, so the fact that this movie did not stop him from then going on and doing what he does, which was what he did,
what he needed to do,
what he did in Borat and even Bruno, and then now what he's doing in Who Is America.
Yes.
The fact that he got to come back to that, and got to have the amazing career that he's had and play. Hell, I thought he was fantastic as Javert in Les Mis, and the fact that he's
he was good in Barber of Fleet Street. Like, come on.
Oh yeah, he was such a good Pirelli.
Yes.
And I love that he got to play Pirelli, because he would never be able to play Pirelli on stage because he's huge, and Pirelli has to be like really small and lightweight so that Sweeney Todd can toss him around. So he was fantastic, and he's great in that Israeli historical thriller that's on Netflix. I started watching it. I need to watch more of it, but so I'm, you know, the movie was meh, but I'm very glad that it wasn't so bad that it stopped him from getting to go on and be him.
Yeah, I'm also glad that it wasn't so bad that I was like ashamed of being a fan. You know what I mean? Like, this could have been worse.
Yeah, it definitely, like, it's just that he, as, you know, a guy who'd been on TV for like a couple of years, was said, okay, you can have a movie, but it has to be, you know. Yeah,
there are parameters you have to follow. Yeah.
And thank goodness he got to do other things.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like again, there's still the offensiveness in his stuff later, but I feel like it's that type. There's a balance that you have to strike as a comedian, and I feel like he gets a lot better at striking that balance as we get to those more crafted moments. Yeah.
So, okay, mini thirst corner. In that baffling disco flashback that I still don't understand, but Sacha Baron Cohen with long hair and a mesh shirt.
Okay.
Yes.
You mentioned
also the girl he was groping at the old folks home.
Oh yeah, that chick was pretty nice. That chick is pretty choice.
Like Kate's very beautiful, doesn't do it for me.
Right? Yeah.
You know, she's alright, she's very beautiful, but she's like so perfect looking. It's like you know, she's just kind of like a glass doll.
Right? That it's just like like I can't even be attracted. You're just too perfectly like okay.
But definitely like the girl from the nursing home and Sacha Baron Cohen in a mesh shirt.
And but yeah, what I was thinking about was I thought when you mentioned his hair, I thought you were talking about the sequence where he takes off the thing and he has the
well,
fro.
that was so obviously a wig.
Yeah. But
also the dominatrix in that fantasy.
Oh yeah.
Like, you're a naughty boy and I have dry skin.
Look, I just really like it when British girls say naughty.
Yes, there's something about that naughty.
Thing
yes.
ever.
Yeah.
Like if like I remember being in like just like a conversation, just like talking with like a British girl, and you know just like the word like came up, it was like, oh yeah, he's being really naughty, and I was just like, oh that was slightly too sexy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyways, after saying all that, after confessing my hey, if there any,
it was Naomi Campbell. I thought it was like,
knew because I was about to say.
Because I was like, isn't she that famous model? It was
Yes!
Naomi Campbell. Yeah.
Because I was like, I think it was Naomi. My brain, like, I was gonna cover my ass and be like, there's a chick in there that looks like Naomi Campbell and is really hot.
Yeah.
But it was actually her, so yeah, boom, that's my third score. Boom.
Yeah, so she thinks you're a very naughty boy and she's gonna throw a phone at you.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I don't want. That's too much trouble for me. But yeah, thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoy it, you can support us over at patreon.com/reviewanew or slide us, $30 one-time donation over at kofi.com/rapcritic, where I take in all the requests for what you want, movies, music videos, or albums. Over there, you can go check it out and, help your boy keep all these little shows running. But, again, thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoy the show, check it out. It should be on YouTube now. I should be uploading the episodes there instead of on Spotify now. Just easier on me. And until next time,
I'm Evan.
And I'm John, a.k.a. the Incredible General. You remember what I'm playing? Wicked. Jungle is massive. Alright.
So booyaka, when the general a boss. Booyaka, MB run the dance. Booyaka, we no take part no talk. Booyaka. Incredible.